Hey guys, how are you? Another literature break for you today, and this comes as a result of some discussion that we've been having over the past year or so on Facebook, on my Facebook page, in relation to Keynesian and Austrian economics. So I'm sure that you may have been involved in such discussions yourself in the past few years, and just whether the quantitative easing is a good idea or whether you should just let everything bottom out and rejuvenate on its own in the economy. So anyway, this name Hayek came up. So this is The Road to Serfdom, which in many ways, this is the guy who's been put in opposition to the Keynesian schools of thought about how to offer government interventions in economic affairs. So this was originally published in 1944, and I'm reading from the 50th anniversary edition. I have not finished reading this book. Usually I only read from books I've finished reading, but I'm still working my way through this one. There's some great essays, though, because he talks about democracy and rule of law and totalitarianism and individualism and collectivism, and so there's security and freedom, which is really, really interesting. So this is from Material Conditions and Ideal Ends. Our generation likes to flatter itself that it attaches less weight to economic considerations than did its parents or grandparents. The end of economic man bids fair to become one of the governing myths of our age. Before we accept this claim or treat the change as praiseworthy, we must inquire a little further how far it is true. When we consider the claims for social reconstruction, which are most strongly pressed, it appears that they are almost all economic in character. We have seen already that the reinterpretation in economic terms of the political ideals of the past, of liberty, equality, and security, is one of the main demands of people who at the same time proclaim the end of economic man. Nor can there be much doubt that in their beliefs and aspirations men are today more than ever before governed by economic doctrines, by the carefully fostered belief in the irrationality of our economic system, by the false assertions about potential plenty, pseudo-theories about the inevitable trend toward monopoly, and the impression created by certain much advertised occurrences such as the destruction of stocks of raw material or the suppression of inventions for which competition is blamed, though they are precisely the sort of thing which could not happen under competition and which are made possible only by monopoly and usually by government-aided monopoly. In a different sense, however, it is no doubt true that our generation is less willing to listen to economic considerations than was true of its predecessors. It is most decidedly unwilling to sacrifice any of its demands to what are called economic arguments. It is impatient and intolerant of all restraints on their immediate ambitions and unwilling to bow to economic necessities. It is not any contempt for material welfare or even any diminished desire for it, but on the contrary, a refusal to recognize any obstacles, any conflict with other aims which might impede the fulfillment of their own desires, which distinguishes our generation. Economic phobia would be a more correct description of this attitude than the doubly misleading end of economic man, which suggests a change from a state of affairs which has never existed in a direction in which we are not moving. Yeah, that's what it says, which has never existed in a direction in which we are not moving. Okay. Man has come to hate and to revolt against the impersonal forces to which in the past he submitted, even though they have often frustrated his individual efforts. This revolt is an instance of a much more general phenomenon, a new unwillingness to submit to any rule or necessity, the rationale of which man does not understand. It makes itself felt in many fields of life, particularly in that of morals, and it is often a commendable attitude. But there are fields where this craving for intelligibility cannot be fully satisfied, and where at the same time a refusal to submit to anything we cannot understand must lead to the destruction of our civilization. Though it is natural that as the world around us becomes more complex, our resistance grows against the forces which, without our understanding them, constantly interfere with individual hopes and plans, it is just in these circumstances that it becomes less and less possible for anyone fully to understand these forces. A complex civilization like ours is necessarily based on the individual's adjusting himself to changes whose cause and nature he cannot understand. why he should have more or less, why he should have to move to another occupation, why some things he wants should become more difficult to get than others, will always be connected with such a multitude of circumstances that no single mind will be able to grasp them. Or even worse, those affected will put all the blame on an obvious, immediate, and avoidable cause, while the more complex interrelationships which determine the change remain inevitably hidden to them. Even the director of a completely planned society, if he wanted to give an adequate explanation to anyone why he has to be directed to a different job or why his remuneration has been changed, could not fully do so without explaining and vindicating his whole plan, which means, of course, that it could not be explained to more than a few. It was men's submission to the impersonal forces of the market that in the past has made possible the growth of a civilization without this could not have developed. It is by thus submitting that we are every day helping to build something that is greater than any one of us can fully comprehend. So, lots of reading comprehension skills required for this one, but well worth the effort. Take care.